Hi, I'm Ashley Atwood with Sunshine Hill Properties, and I've helped over 70 hopeful homeowners build their bridge from renting to home ownership. Now I'm here to give you the tools you need to achieve your dream of becoming a homeowner. This is the How to Be a Homeowner podcast. Okay, hi Alex.
Hey.
Hi, so today we have Alex Koupal with Alimental Life here at the How to Be a Homeowner podcast, sponsored by Sunshine Hill Properties and hosted by me. I'm Ashley Atwood. This is Alex Koupal. Alex is the founder of Alimental Life. She's an owner and a life coach. She's dedicated the last 15 years of her life in the health and nutrition industry and has a plethora, that word? It's a good word.
It's a good word.
I learned that word, I think, in Clueless.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm aging myself, but
yeah.
That's good language when I was 15. Anyway, plethora of knowledge about supplements, food nutrition, and the impact of nutrition has on physical and as well as mental health. She's volunteered for over 5 years as an outreach counselor with Stand Up for Kids, helping homeless youth. Alex is a certified personal trainer, event and experience designer for Venture Cafe Phoenix at the Center for Entrepreneurial Innovation, which is a local business incubator in Phoenix, Arizona. Woo! I've been to a couple of your Venture Cafes and they're really, really cool. So if you have a chance to check those out, you should definitely go. And please excuse my dog. He's playing. It's his birthday. We'll let him go. Alex serves on the board of directors for the nonprofit Mindfulness First and is in the process of launching the Alimental Life Skills Lab, which is really cool for teens, right?
Yep, youth, teens, and college recent graduates.
Yeah, to teach them life skills more than just, reading, writing, and arithmetic, right?
Yeah, basic life planning and, how to just be a successful adult.
Amazing. Let's see. She's got some hobbies. Rock hounding.
Rock hounding?
What's rock hounding?
Where you go out in the desert and you dig up rocks. You go hiking and then you.
I didn't know that was a thing. But it's a thing. Okay,
find
cool.
Turquoise and quartz.
Hiking, homesteading, which is having chickens, right?
Farming, yeah.
Yeah, and geeking out on psychology and neuroscience.
Yeah, I kind of love neuroscience.
That's why you do what you do. Now, you didn't mention, and I know you work with families and teens a lot.
Yes.
So you specialize you worked with my son over the summer.
We did.
A lot of transitions. And it's actually a reason why I wanted Alex to come on this podcast, because buying a home is probably one of the hardest things you're ever going to do. Especially your first one, when you don't know really what's going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of transitions with family, even the stress and anxiety on your own. We're trying to get all of your mortgage paperwork together, getting denied for one, applying for another. There's so much that goes on psychologically and in your own health and body that I wanted to have Alex on to talk about those different things. Also, how to pick good neighborhoods for your family, because it's more than just finding the right house, right? Location is important for your work, for your kids, all of those kinds of things. So she's going to go through a lot of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So before we get started, why did you become a life coach? Why did you start Alimental Life?
I went through corporate world, taking the path I was supposed to take, go to school, get a job, get a career, get married, have kids, and it didn't work out for me that way. And I realized that life doesn't have to be within those societal norms, and that there can be work-life balance, and you can do the things that you're passionate about, and you don't always have to chase the dollar or chase other people's dreams for you. You can actually do the things you love, have a balanced life, make a lot of money, and have family and everything you want. So I decided to take away or branch off from my corporate career full-time this last February, but I've been coaching for several years because I feel like people just need a leg up. They just need to know that there's other ways to do things and other ways to be successful and other definitions of success.
Yes, exactly. Because money isn't always the definition of success. Well, I like money.
We all like money.
I think we all do, but that's not necessarily everybody's definition of success.
Exactly.
So what is your favorite part of doing what you do with Alimental Life?
I think my favorite part is active engagement coaching. So like actually doing things with the people that I coach and watching the physical, mental changes. My coaching style is a little bit different than other coaches. I don't just give you a task list and send you off with homework. We do it together. We work through things as a team, and you still have homework and things you have to do, but it's really about being part of that process and getting to see the change firsthand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't just sit in an office talking with people. You actually can go out on a hike with them, or, if we're talking about home ownership and like looking for a house, like you can actually go out with them and say, hey, here's like some good reasons why this might be good choice for you or not.
Right.
And I think that's something that you address over here. And when I ask what's the difference, between you, maybe a psychologist or psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And, and nothing against, cognitive behavioral therapy, psychiatrists, psychologists, think they're very much needed. But what I do is I create a bridge kind of between that traditional healthcare and actually creating those behaviors in more of a support system to that kind of traditional healthcare or mental health care.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get into some questions, but I'm going to take a quick break and we're going to have a word from our sponsors. For this break, I'm going to mention one of our incredible sponsors, HOA.com. Did y'all know that HOA actually stands for Homeowner Alliance? They are America's #1 referral network for professionals that service homeowners. That means their entire existence is to pair quality service professionals that service your house with you as the homeowner. Go to HOA.com/Ashley to find a service professional in your area. They serve the entire country from Austin to Denver to Phoenix to Tampa. You'll be able to find somebody in your area. Also, if you are a service professional and you want to partner with HOA.com, go to the same link, HOA.com/Ashley, and sign up today. Alex, one thing that I know that I want to talk about is helping families choose where they want to live. Obviously, when you're looking for houses, we see on HGTV, we see all those pretty things.
Yes.
But there's more to it than just finding a house that you think is pretty. So can you go through like some questions and some things that you need to ask yourself to help find the neighborhood, I guess is the best way to ask it.
Yeah, it's really about defining what you want your lifestyle to look like.
Meaning what?
Meaning, are you running a small business out of your home? Are you wanting to have, livestock or chickens? Do you want to have space for your children to play in your backyard or in your neighborhood or in the street? What does your lifestyle overall look like? And that's important because when you go in and you're like, okay, well, this is a beautiful house, the big backyard, and I'd love to set up a playground in the backyard for my children. Well, can you do that? You need to check with your HOA, the CCNRs, to make sure that the things you want to do.
What is a CCNR? Some people are not going to know what that means.
I do not know what it stands for, but I know there are a set of guidelines that are set by.
As long as you know that there's a set of guidelines that the HOA is going to make you sign, basically. It's like you can't have your trash can for out longer than 24 hours.
Right.
Or you can't have a structure in your backyard that goes higher than your fence. No, those are all different. Each HOA is going to have something different, but that's what a CCNR is. And you're going to want to make sure you review those so that you can.
Yeah. And even, parking a vehicle outside of your home that has branding all over it. Sometimes they want that, hidden from view. Yeah. And if you're a water truck driver and you want to bring your water truck home every night, you can't do that in some neighborhoods. So it's important to note that. And then also, what kind of school district you're in, how close the schools are, if you want your kids to walk or if they're driving or if they're bike riding. If it's a, school district that you align with your children, I think that's important as well. Making sure too that the neighborhood, you feel comfortable, it's like-minded people. I know there was a neighborhood I moved into that, once I moved in, I was like, oh, wow. Like I don't feel comfortable with my neighbors. Like we have very different view sets, and it was kind of an overall culture and making sure that you fit into that culture, because these are the people you're going to live next to, you know, and if they're not tolerant of your lifestyle, then it's really difficult to feel like you're at home.
And something different that you have to think about, because when you're renting, you can just not renew your lease and you move, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not convenient, but it's easy.
It's a test drive the neighborhood too. Yeah.
It's easier to, you know, relocate if you run into something that you're like, oh, I really don't like the neighborhood here, or I want to have a, you know, even if you're renting a single family, I want to have a playground in my backyard, but I can't. So when you're buying, while it's not necessarily permanent, like you can always sell your home, upgrade it. Your home that you purchase doesn't always have to be your forever home.
Right.
But it is a lot harder.
It is a lot harder.
It's a lot harder. There's a bigger investment involved. Yeah. So you want to make sure you do ask all of these questions to yourself and your family, as well as research it with the CCNRs and maybe going to some community events. I know that our community has a lot of, you know, events that they host just to get to know the neighbors. So maybe research that community, right?
Yeah. Research the community, get on Nextdoor and kind of see, you know, search the community and see what people are saying. I mean, you're always going to have neighbors or people that you don't get along with. That's inevitable.
There's always going to be that guy.
But it's just about, you know, making sure that you feel comfortable and driving the neighborhood at night, driving by different times of the day, you know, looking at the types of cars that are in the neighborhood, people walking around, if they're walking, not walking, you know, if it's just a lot of things to consider when you're looking for a permanent residence.
Yeah, and these are some things that your real estate agent can help you with too, right? Like we're not expecting you to know how to look up somebody's CCNRs. And in fact, it's really hard even for us agents to get a copy of the CCNRs, right? So definitely enlist your agent to help you with this, or if you need some guidance, Alex can definitely help you with structuring what your lifestyle is wanting to look like. Like she can help guide you through those questions and stuff as you're trying to figure that out. But yeah, there's definitely lots of ways to do that. And those are good to think about, because I don't think people think about those long-term effects of buying a home.
Right.
Absolutely. So let's move into once we found a neighborhood that we love and your real estate agent helps you find a house that you love within that neighborhood that you love, we're going to go under contract. Right. Tell us about a lot of things that we feel. In other episodes, we'll go through the details of what going under contract means and all of that kind of stuff. But Alex is going to share with us about the things that can go inside of our own bodies or our own families, all that kind of stuff. So let's just start. I'll lob that to you.
It was like, what's the saying? Like, moving will either make or break a relationship, buying a home.
Well, moving in itself is so stressful. And all of us have moved at least once in our lives.
Yeah. And then when you're buying a home, there's so much more weight to that, right? And it's such a big commitment. I know marriage is a big commitment, so are children, but it's also a really big commitment, big financial commitment, big time commitment. And you're promising to live in this house for a long time together. And you're trying to combine personalities and what people like, what they don't like. And even if you've already cohabitated or lived with your partner, you know, you come into a new environment and you're trying to find like the boundaries of, you know, who gets which closet and what kid gets which bedroom. And
which you might have had that fight with roommates in the past, who gets what closet.
Right, that's true. But, you know, and then on top of that, there's a lot of anxiety that comes along with it. The home buying process is very stressful. And especially if you're trying to vacate a home to move into a home or leave a, you know, rental property, and, you know, when are you breaking your lease, and are you overlapping your lease with purchasing a new one or moving into a new one, and, you know, money and finances, and you're in this weird position where you've got to spend a lot of money, but you can't spend money, you can't buy furniture yet, you know. And there's a lot of rules. What she
means by that is once you get approved for a mortgage, but before you close on the house, there's a time period where you're not supposed to apply for credit or buy any big purchases or anything like that, because it could jeopardize your approval in the end. And so that's what she means by not being able to do some of the things that you want to do, but that's stressful because you're like, I'm moving into a new house and I need furniture and I'm supposed to move the day after we close, but I don't have furniture and I can't buy furniture because of this. So there's a lot of unthought, like no premeditated, I guess, stress that comes along because you don't ever expect that kind of thing to happen.
Right. And I think a lot of people, no matter how much their real estate agent and their mortgage brokers warn them of like, this is what's coming. It's so many moving parts. And then there's also so many stressors that are going on behind the scenes with, preparing the people you're living with, either it's the children or your partner or in-laws that are living with you, or your pets. I mean, and making sure everyone is on board, able to go through the transition. There might be a lot of emotions involved. And anytime, like, since I'm a neuroscience geek, your prefrontal cortex is where you house your decision making, but also emotions. And so when you're overly charged with emotions, you can't make decisions. Like that part of your brain is completely flooded with just trying to survive. And so trying to make smart decisions while you're emotionally charged, it's not a good idea. But that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Because there's so many moving pieces and parts. So really it's about creating that plan, having someone you can trust like your agent to kind of help you build out what that looks like, what that timeline might be, because there's going to be a lot of changes in that timeline. And being comfortable with being a bit agile and flexible and understanding that it's not set in stone. I think that's another frustrating part of the home buying, moving process is, okay, you're going to get the keys and we're going to close on this date.
Just kidding. It's going to be a few more days. The underwriters need some more time.
Now you got to move your movers. Now you got to change babysitters. Now you got to, whatever it is, jobs and taking time off work. Yeah. So
how does somebody handle that emotional turmoil? Like, because buying a house is a big decision, and it's not just buying the home and picking the house and applying for the mortgage. It's all of those things that come up and handling the changes within that and making those decisions. And like you said, I know I was the most stressed out I've been in a very long time when I was going through my first mortgage, and I had to make decisions on the fly, but I was highly, highly emotional. So how do I, or our listeners, combat that on some techniques for themselves, and then some things that they might need to call a professional like yourself to help guide them through those transitions? Can you go through that with me?
Yeah. So first thing I would say is make sure that whoever you're working with, you trust, right? If you don't have a really good relationship with your agent, it's going to be hard to have that trust, right? So having that trust in your agent and kind of relying on them and making sure you're asking questions and that they're helping guide you through that process. Then creating a timeline for yourself. So understanding what all these parameters are and what some of the things, the challenges that might come up for you and your family. So if it is taking time off work, whatever, write it down. Having it out of your head and on paper is really helpful to kind of help silence that circular talk, like, oh, I can't forget. Even just creating a list of like, okay, before I move, I have to do this, this, and this, and this. That will also allow you when someone comes in, like your mom or your family member, friend, that's like, hey, how can I help you?
You have a list. That's a good idea.
And you don't have to try to come up with something, because when you're emotional, you're like, I don't know how you can.
I don't know, just leave me alone. Just
pray. Start crying. So having some kind of list or, like brain dump for the whole process. And one that you and your partner, or whoever you're moving with, or if it's by yourself, that can share. Because I know when Josh and I moved into our house, we had something, he wanted certain things done and I wanted certain things done. And it kind of helped us come to a middle ground on everything. And then also practicing mindfulness.
What does that mean?
I think when you start to feel the anxiety or the overload of the emotion, take a step back, take a deep breath, try to calm your nervous system and remind yourself that everything's okay. This is an exciting thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, excitement and fear are the same emotion in our body. It's just how we decide to, you know, present that and say, okay, it is scary, but I'm also very excited.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever happens, it's going to be all right. I'm going to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have a place to live, and kind of reassure yourself that you're in the moment and you can only control what's happening right now. And there's a lot of things that are out of your control. And there's this exercise I love doing with my clients who have anxiety. It's called the circle of control.
Okay.
And so you write down everything that's stressing you out on like Post-it notes or little pieces of paper, and you draw a target, like a bullet. So circle, circle, circle. And on the inside, put everything that you have complete control over, that you yourself can control.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can brush my teeth. I can, you know, get ready in the morning. I can sign this paperwork.
I can fill my lungs up with air.
Yeah.
Real quick and let it out. Those things
Yes.
we have control over.
Yes, those are the things you have control over. Then everything else is everything you have influence over. So I have influence over when maybe I can take time off work, right? Or I have influence over, you know, when my boss will allow me to take time off work.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have influence over helping my dog transition. But I really have no control how my dog's going to behave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that outer circle, everything you have absolutely no control over. I have no control over when, you know, the documents are going to get final and approved. I have no
Mm-hmm.
control over, you know, what happens after I do my paperwork and I've done everything and
Mm-hmm.
pass it off. Like,
and you mentioned in the circle of influence,
mm-hmm.
you can ask your boss for that time off, but you have no control over what his or her response might be to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so kind of looking at it from that standpoint and everything outside of your own control,
Mm-hmm.
mentally checking yourself and going, okay, I have no control over any of this.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore it's not worth me stressing or worrying about. I know it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But it really puts in perspective how much of it is completely out of your control.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can say it however you want, but you just gotta have faith in the process
Mm-hmm.
and faith that whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen.
Yeah.
And
I like that circle of influence. So here's your control, right? Then you have your
Mhm.
circle of influence where you can try
yeah,
to do that. That's a great place to ask your friends for help or
It
your
is.
family for help, because that
Yeah.
is influence, right? Like,
Mhm.
that asking your boss for that time off is using that person for help. That's asking that person for help. You have friends and family that can help you move if the movers decide,
Yep.
you know, to cancel. So
Yeah.
I like that idea, because it's like, okay, here's what I can control. Here's where I could ask for help if I need it.
Mhm.
And here's where I have to just go, okay, you know, whatever your belief system is, you know, let it go and let
Yeah.
it be, which is really difficult, but at least you know that you've done everything in your control
Right.
to be able to let the outcome be as beneficial
Exactly.
as possible.
Yeah.
And when should somebody look for some help from somebody like yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I would say anytime you're about to go through a transition, or you want to make a transition, you know, if you're feeling stagnant in what you're doing in your life and you're like, okay, I'm not happy here, then reach out to a coach or reach out to someone like me who can help you start that transition process and then guide you through the process. It's always easier when you have someone to kind of hold your hand through the process than it is doing it on your own. I mean,
It's a circle of influence.
it is. It's a circle of influence. And having someone like a coach like me, you have a full additional set of resources. So you probably have your own resources, and, you know, buying a home, you have your real estate agent's resources, but to have additional resources for, you know, pet sitting and childcare and, you know, doctors and anything else that you might need when moving locations.
Or even just somebody to remind you, hey, let's just take a
Yes.
step back.
Yes.
Remind you that it is a good thing that's happening,
Yeah.
that everything's going to be okay. Having that second person to kind of see when you're starting to
Yeah.
spiral.
And having someone outside of your circle that's not emotionally attached or doesn't have underlying motives to your success or what happens, right? Because everyone in that home buying process is in it for something.
Yeah.
And everyone in your family, your friends is going to have an opinion of what they think, preconceived notions. And so to have that neutrality of someone to come in and look at it, you know, from the 1,000-foot view and say, okay, this is why you're stressed out. This is probably why you're feeling this way. These are the people that are contributing to that.
Right.
Here's how to set boundaries with them. Here's how to manage expectations. Here's how to make sure your child feels safe through this process. You know, it's a lot more than just goal setting and planning. It's also about managing behaviors through the transition.
You mentioned just now managing expectations. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, what expectations do we set on ourselves versus what actually happens? Can you just kind of broaden that a little bit?
Yeah, I think we all set really high expectations for ourselves. And we have this, you know, image or goal or idea of what life should be.
We've all watched House Hunters on HGTV, and we think it's just going to be that easy.
And it's never that easy. And it's about managing your own expectations and the expectations others have of you. I think too is, and this is just speaking from my personal experience with my own partner, you know, Josh is very involved, but also very hands-off. And his expectation is that I do all of the logistics and the planning and the management. That's not realistic. Like I can't do it, especially when he has opinions about how things are getting done, right? And so having to, you know, manage his expectations of what my role will be in that process and what the house is going to look like and what we're capable of getting and not getting and doing, you know, it's twofold because there's two people involved. I mean, it's different if you're buying it by yourself. It's about managing your own expectations and what you think other people are going to think of you and what you're comfortable with and what you want and don't want. But I think that's why it's really important to have someone kind of removed from the situation to help you manage your own expectations and then help you manage the expectations of others around you.
What is the number one most frequently asked question you receive?
I'm usually the one that's asking the questions. I think it just in what I do, I think a lot of people say, well, do I need a therapist or do I need a life coach? And I'm not a replacement. Life coach is not a replacement for therapy, but it is a wonderful bridge to help support any cognitive behavioral therapy you're going through. You know, if you don't respond well in a therapy environment, like a lot of the youth that I coach have been in therapy and they felt like it's very, you know, tell me more about that, you know, very judgmental, clinical. They don't feel comfortable. And so they might have better results working with someone like a life coach where they can feel more comfortable sharing and expressing and taking advice. But yeah, it really just depends on the individual, and I think it has a place in support of therapy.
What are some great questions for our home buyers, homeowners to ask when they're interviewing somebody for a life coach or somebody like yourself?
I think one of the main questions to ask, and it's more of to ask yourself, is this the right person for me? So you really have to hit it off with your life coach. You have to be completely honest with them, feel comfortable, feel like they're not going to be judging you based on the things you tell them. Also, making sure you understand what the process is that coach uses. So if they have a specific coaching style or specific coaching type, you know, what is the average session that you'd be working with them look like? Some coaches, you know, will come in, they go hard on the goal setting and give you homework. And every week you just check back in with that homework. Some of them do more of the active engagement stuff like I do, like where we set plans, we do some of the behaviors together, and then others, you know, and then we set new goals and then come back. And others, you know, have different approaches. So really making sure you understand what that coach's approach is and how they work, in making sure that you feel like there's a real connection with that person.
Okay. Would there be any difference, because we're taping here in Phoenix, this is where we live.
Yes.
Would there be any difference between here, our hometown market, versus some of our listeners that are in other states, other parts of the country?
Yeah, I mean, most life coaches do virtual. I prefer to work with my clients in person just because I feel like there's something very special about that face-to-face contact and interaction. But in a scenario where you would be looking at transitioning your living situation, I mean, I would personally recommend that you find someone local that can be face-to-face with you, that has a really good understanding of your market, your neighborhood, etc., because then they can help you find resources outside of, house buying related, but, finding babysitters and dog sitters and those kind of things that you might need.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention too, like, if you need some actual help, if there's physical danger in your life, then a life coach could be a good person to recommend. A psychologist or psychiatrist.
Yes.
He or she might be able to notice when you might need some additional clinical help.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I've had plenty of clinical help that has saved me from different parts in my life. So let's just make sure that if you do need some help, reach out to Alex, and maybe she could get you to
For sure.
point you in the right direction. This podcast specifically is talking about helping with anxiety and stress of becoming a homeowner, but there's so much more.
Oh yeah.
There's so much more that happens. And so we just want to make
Yeah.
sure that you guys are prepared and armed with the right resources.
For sure. Yeah. And life coaches do take a more holistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
So they can even help you kind of get through the anxiety and stress through like nutrition and working out and different behavior changes that you could do to kind of implement and help improve that overall wellness. So, and it's a twofold, they'll recommend naturopaths, they'll recommend you out to doctors, counselors. I mean, whatever
you're specifically going through, because every person is different. Everybody's, every experience is different.
Right.
Even if this is your second house, you're going to have some different things come up. So it's always nice to have somebody else on your side, for sure. Okay, so some more fun questions, because that we kind of got a little bit down.
A little deep.
What's some industry jargon that we should know? Like, what's some fun things, some fun little tidbits about what you do?
Industry jargon.
Mm-hmm.
So mindfulness was one of the first things we kind of talked about, and that's about being in the moment, being mindful of what's going on around you now. It's very Buddhist, like mindset,
It's very trendy to hear these days what mindfulness is, but I don't think people actually know what it means.
Yeah, it's about just living in the moment, like in the moment that you're in right now. Another one is situational anxiety, situational depression. I think a lot of times people are like, well, I'm just depressed, and they think it's forever, or they think it's something that they need to be medicated. And some people do, and that's fine. But sometimes you're just situationally depressed or situationally anxious.
Because you're buying a house.
Yeah, because you're buying a house.
That's a situation that might create some anxiety.
You're going through a major transition. And then that's where, cognitive behavioral therapy or someone like a life coach or even a personal trainer can kind of help get you out of that funk and move you forward. Another fun jargon, I would say, okay, so there's been a lot of talk in the industry about anxiety management and nervous system overload, especially since we're all in this burnout post-COVID. Look up the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is a big nerve that runs down your body, and stimulating that nerve kind of snaps out any anxiety. They talk about stimulating your vagus nerve when you have migraines, when you're overstressed, to kind of reset your nervous system.
I want to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
What is that?
So there's a couple different ways to do it, but anything that either physical touch around the nerve
is up here. It's around your neck.
I forget which side. So you need to test me. I forget which side it comes down, but it comes down down the front of your body here. And like for migraines and stuff, they talk about putting your head in ice water really quick. Yeah, but it's to shock your nervous system out of the signals that it's sending. So it's sending these anxiety, stress signals. But then if you can do something to redirect those signals, then it's like, oh, wait, what were we doing? And another technique to alleviate anxiety and like stimulate your nervous system is to activate your five senses. So
you've worked with that with me. Okay.
So it's like a meditation type thing where, you stare at something super intently and just really stare at it and like think about the color and the texture and then feel something and really focus on the way it feels, the texture of the fabric, how it feels in your hand. The next, taste something. So whether it's water, your own saliva, your gum, whatever, something to eat, and then really focus on the taste and how it feels in your mouth. And then the next one is smell, and then sound. Listen to the sound around you. And once you activate all five senses, it kind of stimulates your brain to think, oh, okay, like I'm alive, I'm safe, and we're not stressed out anymore because we're doing something different.
And you brought it back to the moment. Like I know when you I struggled a lot with anxiety. I had a huge transition in my life as well, coming into real estate. And Alex worked with me on that. And it took me out of future thinking, which is where a lot of my anxiety would come from. And it would put me back into my present moment. Everything's okay.
Yeah.
Still have all my five senses working. I'm lucky for that.
Yeah.
I'm blessed for that. And then it helped relieve that emotional chaos to where I was able to go, okay, and make those decisions from a more relaxed, educated place. So
and I love that you said future thinking is where your anxiety comes from.
That's where mine came from, for sure.
Well, because anxiety is about thinking about the future. Depression is thinking about the past, and happiness is in the middle, is in the moment. And so the more you can live in the moment, the happier you're going to be. And if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, look at it and be like, well, am I ruminating on the past, or am I trying to control things that are out of my control in the future? And it gives you a different perspective, because it's not so much about, oh, there's something wrong with me, I'm just anxious all the time. It's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't worry so much about what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah. Because it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some crazy stories that you can tell us from your job, from your experience?
I was going to say, there's not a whole lot I can share because of client confidentiality.
So you hold the same status, I guess, maybe that's the wrong word, but as a psychologist or psychiatrist, like you hold that privacy
for sure
with your clients.
I do. And I think that's the best way to do it. And especially when working with families or, youth or teens, there is a parent child confidentiality agreement that we sign, and I choose not to share with the parent anything that, obviously, if the child's like suicidal or something major, risk, I would definitely.
But if we're talking about moving to a different, if you're talking about moving to a different neighborhood and your child is going to move schools, that's tough for a lot of kids.
It really is.
And they may not want to talk to you as a parent because you're mom or dad, which as we as parents want them to, but they're not. So having somebody like Alex, where they can feel safe and you're not going to tattle on mom or dad. Yeah,
and I coach them to have those conversations with their parents, but it's more about, making sure they trust what I'm withholding information, and then coaching them on how to communicate that to their parents and make sure that they're
when they are ready or so choose.
Right.
Cool. Yeah. So no crazy stories this time, guys.
No crazy stories.
That's okay. We would rather she uphold those promises to her clients. All right. So let's tell everybody how they can reach you for their own help, or maybe they need some referrals to somebody in a different location.
Yeah, they can reach out to me either through my website, alimentallife.com, or send me an email at alex@alimentallife.com.
Okay, and then are you on social media?
I am on social media, not a whole lot though. Working on that, but yeah, at Alimental Life. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Awesome. And if anybody does reach out to her, there is a How to Be a Homeowner podcast incentive.
Yes.
If you mention that you heard us on here.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you'll get $25 off your first 1.5 hour deep dive session with me.
Nice. So when you do reach out, make sure you mention that you heard our interview on how to be a homeowner.
Yeah.
You guys can set up and you'll get that little discount to see where you want to go from there.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Ashley.
Thanks for coming.
So fun.
And so y'all know, this is our very first taping.
It was great.
On our very first day. And it may not be the first episode that airs, but it was our first one to record, and it was so fun. So thanks for being my guinea pig.
Thank you. And I feel honored to be your first guest.
It's so exciting. All right, everybody. Well, tune in next week. There's going to be tons of stuff in the show notes. Reach out to me if you have any questions or need anything, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Sunshine Hill Properties is proud to bring you the How to Be a Homeowner podcast. If you have more questions, ask them in the comment section. I will be featuring and answering them in upcoming episodes. If you like the show, leave a review and share it with a friend. Our goal is to help as many people as possible achieve their dreams, and your reviews help reach those people. If you are ready to build your bridge to homeownership, reach out to me at sunshinehillproperties.com to make an appointment for a call. No matter where you are in the country or on your journey, I'm ready to get you headed in the right direction with a free consultation. Interested in finding a trusted service provider in your area or partnering with HOA.com as a service professional? Go to HOA.com/Ashley. Are you an agent? Great! I am growing my team in states across the country. Let's schedule a call to see if we need an agent to cover your area. Visit sunshinehillproperties.com. Want a career in real estate? You're not an agent yet, but you still want a career? That's still wonderful. I'd love to talk to you about training with me or one of my team members. Contact us at, you guessed it, sunshinehillproperties.com. I have to shout out our amazing post-production team. Thank you, Space Dream Productions, for doing every bit of post-production. I truly could not have made this show happen without you. And last but not least, if you don't want to miss a thing, be sure to subscribe to us now on the How to Be a Homeowner podcast.